It was a calm Friday morning in downtown Austin, Texas. The kind of day when people rush through the streets with coffee cups in their hands and plans in their minds. The sun was rising behind the tall glass buildings, turning everything golden. Among the crowd, walking quietly and unnoticed, was Dr. Olivia Carter, a woman whose appearance betrayed none of her true identity. Dressed in jeans, a simple gray hoodie, and sneakers, she looked like any other person running morning errands. No one could have guessed that this woman was one of the most respected neurosurgeons in the country, and the Yankee, daughter of a decorated police chief who had passed away years earlier. Olivia had always been humble despite her achievements. She preferred the ordinary, the quiet of coffee shops, the peace of early mornings, and the comfort of blending in. But on that particular day, fate had something entirely different in store for her. She had stopped by a small bakery on 6th Street to grab a coffee and a cinnamon roll before heading to the hospital for a major surgery scheduled at noon. The place smelled of butter and roasted beans, and the friendly barista smiled as she greeted Olivia by name. She was a regular customer there. Olivia smiled back, thanked her, and took a seat near the window. Across the street, 2 patrol cars had parked awkwardly in front of a red pickup truck. It seemed like another routine stop, nothing unusual in a big city like Austin. But in a matter of minutes, that small moment of calm was about to spiral into something much bigger. As Olivia sipped her coffee, she noticed a commotion outside. The police officers were shouting at a man near the truck. From what she could tell, he seemed frightened, confused, perhaps even unwell. She frowned, sensing that something wasn't right. Years of medical training had sharpened her ability to read people, and something about the man's posture, the way he held his chest and struggled to speak, alarmed her. Without hesitation, Olivia stood up, set down her coffee, and hurried outside. The spring air hit her face, and the sound of the city, honking cars, murmuring pedestrians, and the distant hum of traffic filled her ears. The scene outside had escalated. The 2 officers, both visibly irritated, were accusing the man of resisting arrest. He kept trying to explain something between gasps, but his words were incoherent. Olivia's instincts kicked in immediately. She recognized the signs of a heart attack. "Excuse me," she called out, approaching the officers. "He's having a medical emergency." One of the officers, Officer Daniels, turned to her, his expression impatient. "Ma'am, please step back. This is police business." "I'm a doctor," Olivia insisted. "He needs help right now, or he's going to die." But Daniels rolled his eyes. "Yeah, sure you are. Everyone's a doctor on the street these days." The other officer, Sergeant Miller, laughed under his breath. "Lady, we've got this. You don't need to play hero today." Olivia's heart raced, frustration burning inside her. She took another step forward. "I'm not playing anything. Look at him. His lips are turning blue, and his hands are shaking. He needs an ambulance." But instead of listening, the officers moved closer to her, blocking her path. "Back up, ma'am," Daniels ordered, his tone now sharp. "If you interfere again, we'll have to detain you for obstruction." A small crowd had gathered, people pulling out their phones to record the scene. Olivia could feel her pulse pounding. She knew that every second mattered. The man's condition was deteriorating rapidly. He was now on his knees, struggling to breathe. She glanced at him, and back at the officers, her voice trembling with urgency. "Please," she said, "if you don't believe me, check his pulse." "You're wasting time." But they didn't move. Instead, Daniel smirked and said sarcastically, "Maybe when you finish your shift at the clinic, you can teach us a thing or two, huh?" The crowd gasped at his remark, some shaking their heads. One woman muttered, "Why don't they just let her help?" Olivia clenched her fists, anger rising within her. Her father, Chief Robert Carter, had raised her to respect the badge, to believe in justice, honor, and service. But right now, all she could see was arrogance and ignorance. Then it happened. The man collapsed. His head hit the pavement with a sickening thud. The crowd screamed. Olivia rushed forward, ignoring the officer's shouts. She dropped to her knees beside him and immediately began CPR. "Call Eames," she yelled, not even looking up. "Now!" Daniels reached for her arm. I said back off. He barked. Olivia spun toward him, her eyes blazing. "If you touch me again, this man dies because of you. Is that what you want?" For a moment, everything froze. The tension was electric. Even Miller hesitated, realizing that something serious was happening. Olivia didn't waste another second. She continued chest compressions, counting steadily, her mind focused entirely on saving the man's life. After what felt like an eternity, the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance. Paramedics rushed in, taking over the scene. Olivia stood back, her hands trembling, sweat running down her forehead. The paramedic in charge looked at her and said, "Who started CPR?" "I did," she said, still catching her breath. "Good job," he replied. "You saved him. If you hadn't intervened, he wouldn't have made it." The crowd clapped, some even cheering. But the two officers, their faces now pale and uneasy, stood in silence. Daniels avoided her gaze entirely. Olivia turned to them, her voice calm, but filled with quiet power. "Next time," she said softly, "don't assume someone's worth by the clothes they wear. It might save a life." The paramedics loaded the man into the ambulance, and as it drove off, the onlookers began whispering among themselves. Some recognized her face now. One person gasped, pulling out their phone and searching her name. Within minutes, someone shouted from the crowd, "Wait a minute, that's Dr. Olivia Carter. She's the top neurosurgeon at St. Mary's." Daniel's face turned white as realization hit him. Miller looked equally stunned. The murmurs grew louder, the crowd now filming everything. "She's famous," someone said. "She's the one who performed that surgery on the senator's son." The two officers exchanged nervous glances. Olivia didn't say another word. She simply picked up her bag, turned, and walked away, leaving behind two humiliated officers and a crowd that would soon make sure the whole city knew what had just happened. That moment, captured on half a dozen phones, would go viral within hours. But Olivia didn't care about any of that. She didn't do it for recognition. She did it because she couldn't stand by and watch injustice or ignorance take another life. As she walked back toward her car, the cool Texas breeze brushed against her face. She thought about her father and what he used to say, "A badge doesn't make you powerful. Character does." Little did Olivia know, this was only the beginning. What came next would shake not only those officers, but the entire police department, and it would forever change the way the world saw one humble doctor who refused to stay silent. By that afternoon, the city of Austin was buzzing with conversation. What had started as a simple altercation between police officers and a woman on the street had become the #1 trending topic on every social media platform. The footage of Dr. Olivia Carter, the calm, humble woman in the gray hoodie, fearlessly confronting two officers while saving a man's life, had spread like wildfire. Within hours, hashtags like #Dr. Olivia Carter, #Hero in HOODIE, and #Justice in Austin were everywhere. Millions of people watched the video, shocked not only by the arrogance of the officers, but by the quiet authority Olivia displayed. In one of the clips, she could be heard saying, "Don't assume someone's worth by the clothes they wear. It might save a life." That single sentence, simple yet powerful, became the quote of the day. People began printing it on shirts, sharing it with captions like, "True class isn't worn, it's lived." Meanwhile, inside the Austin Police Department, chaos was unfolding. The chief of police, Raymond Douglas, sat in his office watching the video on repeat, his expression hardening with each second. The officers involved, Daniels and Miller, had been temporarily suspended pending an internal investigation, but the damage was already done. The entire department was under fire. Accused of discrimination and abuse of authority. Chief Douglas sighed, rubbing his temples. "This is the last thing we needed," he muttered. "And to make it worse, she's Carter's daughter." His assistant looked at him, confused. "Wait, Carter's daughter? You mean Chief Robert Carter?" Douglas nodded slowly. "Yeah, the late chief. One of the best men to ever wear the badge. If he were alive to see this, he'd be heartbroken." Across town, Olivia sat quietly in her apartment. She hadn't planned to go home early, but after the incident, she needed a moment to breathe. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, hospital colleagues, even strangers sending her messages of support and admiration. But Olivia didn't feel proud. She felt heavy. All she had wanted was to help a man in distress. She never wanted attention or controversy. Now her face was everywhere, her name dragged into a national debate about profiling and respect. Her best friend Rachel called her that evening. "Liv, you've seen the news, right? You're literally on every channel. People are calling you a hero." Olivia sighed. "I didn't do anything special, Ratch. I just did what any decent human being should have done." "That's exactly why people love you," Rachel replied. "You stood up for what's right. You didn't yell. You didn't insult anyone. You just acted. And now the whole country's talking about it." Olivia stared out the window. The city lights reflected in her eyes. "I don't want fame," she said quietly. "I just want people to treat others with respect, no matter what they look like." At that same moment, on the other side of town, Officer Daniels sat in his apartment, watching the video for what must have been the 20th time. His phone had been ringing nonstop, angry calls, threats, even reporters waiting outside his door. His wife had refused to go out that day because of the humiliation. He threw his phone on the couch and buried his face in his hands. "How could I have been so stupid?" he whispered. "Why didn't I just listen to her?" But what bothered him most wasn't the public backlash. It was the look in Olivia's eyes when she said, "Is that what you want? For this man to die because of you?" That sentence haunted him. Meanwhile, the man Olivia had saved, identified later as James Holloway, a 54-year-old local mechanic, was recovering at St. Mary's Hospital. Doctors said he had suffered a massive heart attack, but because of Olivia's quick action, his life had been spared. The moment he regained consciousness, he asked, "Where's the lady who saved me?" When the nurse told him who she was, he couldn't believe it. "You mean that was the Dr. Carter?" He said, wide-eyed. "I thought she was an angel." The next morning, Olivia returned to the hospital for her surgery, trying to resume her normal life. But the staff couldn't stop talking about what she had done. Nurses applauded her in the hallway. Patients asked for selfies. And even the hospital director personally thanked her for bringing honor to St. Mary's. Still, Olivia felt uneasy. She didn't like the attention. She wanted to forget the incident and move on. But fate had other plans. Later that day, she received an unexpected phone call. The caller ID showed Austin Police Department. Her pulse quickened. She hesitated for a second before answering. "Dr. Carter?" "This is Chief Douglas," said the voice on the line. "I'd like to meet with you, if possible." "In person?" Olivia paused. "Is this about what happened yesterday?" "Yes," the chief said, "and also about your father." Her heart tightened. It had been years since anyone had brought up her father's name from within the department. She agreed to meet him the next morning. When she hung up, she sat in silence for a moment, her mind spinning. She thought of her father's old badge, which she still kept in a small wooden box on her dresser. It had been his pride, a symbol of honor and duty. He had died in the line of service, a hero to many, but to Olivia, simply her dad. As she opened the box and ran her fingers over the worn metal, she whispered, "I wish you were here, Dad. You'd know what to do." Outside, rain began to fall softly against the window pane. It was as if the city itself was reflecting the tension in the air, a calm before a much greater storm. Because what Olivia didn't know was that her story was no longer just a local issue. National news outlets were now picking it up. Headlines read, "Doctor humiliated by police officers. Ben saves a life right in front of them. From prejudice to praise. The heroic act of Dr. Olivia Carter. A lesson in humanity. How a doctor's courage sparked change." Everywhere she looked, her face appeared on TV screens, online articles, even billboards. People were demanding accountability, justice, and reform. And in the middle of it all, Olivia Carter, the woman who wanted nothing more than to remain invisible, found herself at the heart of a nationwide movement. But the story was far from over, because the next meeting, the one she would have with Chief Douglas, would reveal something she could never have imagined. Something about her father's past. Something that would change everything she thought she knew about that badge, and about the true meaning of justice. The following morning, Dr. Olivia Carter stood in front of the Austin Police Department headquarters, staring up at the massive stone building she hadn't set foot in since she was a child. The glass doors reflected the morning light, and for a brief moment she saw herself calm, composed, yet uneasy. Her heart raced as memories of her father flashed before her eyes. The days she would wait for him to come home from duty, the pride in his voice when he spoke about protecting people, and the grief that consumed her the day he didn't come back. She took a deep breath and stepped inside. The front desk officer glanced up and froze. Everyone in the building knew who she was by now, the woman from the viral video, the daughter of the late Chief Robert Carter. There was an awkward silence as she gave her name, and within minutes, Chief Raymond Douglas appeared at the entrance of his office, motioning for her to come in. His office was spacious but modest, filled with old photographs, commendations, and a faint smell of leather and coffee. On one of the walls hung a framed picture of several police officers, and in the center, smiling proudly, was her father. The sight made her chest tighten. "Dr. Carter," Douglas said warmly, offering his hand. "Thank you for coming on such short notice." Olivia nodded and shook his hand. "You said it was about my father." The chief sighed and gestured for her to sit. "Yes, but first, I want to say that what happened to you was unacceptable. I've reviewed the footage dozens of times. You handled yourself with dignity and calm in a situation that could have turned ugly. I'm deeply sorry for what my officers did to you." "Thank you," she said softly. "But I didn't come here for apologies. I came because you mentioned my father." Douglas leaned back, studying her carefully. "Your father was a legend here, Olivia. Robert Carter was one of the best officers I ever worked with. Fair, fearless, and always driven by principle. He was a mentor to many, including me." Her eyes softened. "He used to talk about you. He said you were one of the good ones." The chief smiled faintly. "He was too kind. But your father's story, there are things you might not know." Olivia frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Douglas hesitated, tapping his fingers against his desk. "When your father died, the official report said it was an accident, a shootout gone wrong during a drug raid. But what they didn't tell the public was that there were irregularities. The mission wasn't supposed to happen that night. He was called in off duty, under strange circumstances. Her heart skipped. Irregularities? Are you saying someone set him up? I'm saying there were powerful people who didn't want the truth getting out, Douglas said quietly. Your father discovered evidence of corruption inside the department. Officers taking bribes from local business owners and even drug runners. He wanted to expose it. But before he could, he was gone. The room fell silent. Olivia's fingers clenched in her lap, her pulse pounding. She had always accepted her father's death as a tragic accident, but now it sounded like something darker. Why are you telling me this now? She asked finally. Because yesterday's incident wasn't random, the chief said. The two officers who harassed you, Daniels and Miller, were both trained by men who worked under the same command your father tried to expose. Some of those same influences still linger in this department. And when they saw you, well, they saw your father's face without realizing it. Olivia's stomach turned. The realization hit her hard. She had walked straight into the same world that once took her father away. Chief Douglas continued, his tone heavy. Olivia, your father was investigating a list of officers involved in the corruption. That list was never found. But I think you might be the key to finding it. She blinked, confused. Me? How? When your father died, he left behind a sealed envelope in his locker, Douglas said, reaching into a drawer and pulling out a small, weathered folder. Inside were notes, fragments of names, locations, and one clue he wanted only his family to see. Your name was written on the front. Olivia's hands trembled as she took the folder. The handwriting was unmistakable, bold, confident, her father's. She could barely breathe as she opened it. Inside, there was a short letter, yellowed with age. Olivia, if you're reading this, it means the truth finally matters. Remember what I told you. Justice isn't about the badge. It's about courage. Follow the music, and you'll find the truth. Her throat tightened. Follow the music? She murmured, puzzled. Douglas nodded slowly. Your father loved jazz. Do you remember where he used to play when he wasn't on duty? Olivia's eyes widened. The Blue Note Lounge. It's been closed for years. Exactly. That might be where he hid the files, the chief said. If that evidence still exists, it could finally bring closure, not just for him, but for you. And for this city? Olivia sat back, her mind spinning. She had come here expecting a routine apology, maybe a discussion about the video, but instead, she had just been handed a mystery that went straight to her father's grave. For years she had carried the pain of losing him without answers, but now a fire ignited in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, she could uncover the truth. I'll go there, she said finally, her voice steady. I'll find whatever he left behind. Douglas gave her a firm nod. I'll send someone to accompany you, just for protection. That place is in a rough part of town. But Olivia shook her head. No, this is something I need to do alone. For a moment, the chief hesitated, then nodded in respect. You've got your father's spirit, Olivia. He'd be proud of you. As she left the station, the folder clutched tightly in her hands. The sun had broken through the clouds. The streets glimmered with new light, as if the city itself was urging her forward. She didn't know what she would find at that abandoned jazz club, but something told her it would change everything about her father, about justice, and about herself. Meanwhile, somewhere in a dark office downtown, a man watched the news footage of Olivia leaving the police station. His face was tense, his jaw tight. He picked up his phone and made a call. She knows, he said quietly. Carter's daughter is looking for it. There was silence on the line before a deep voice responded. and make sure she never finds it. The man nodded grimly, hanging up. As the screen went black, the tension in the story grew. The truth Olivia was about to uncover wasn't just a secret. It was dangerous. And for the first time, the fight her father had died for was now hers to finish. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the Austin skyline, Olivia Carter drove down an old road lined with decaying warehouses and boarded-up shops. The air smelled of rust and rain, the streets eerily quiet except for the distant hum of cars on the freeway. Her GPS had long stopped working. She was far off the usual city paths now, but she recognized the area from her childhood memories. At the end of the street stood a weathered brick building with a faded blue sign that still read the Blue Note Lounge. The letters were chipped, the door half rotted, and the windows clouded with years of dust. Yet, as Olivia parked and stepped out, a strange sense of familiarity washed over her. Her father used to bring her here on quiet Sunday mornings before opening hours. He'd sit at the piano, letting his fingers wander over the keys while she sat cross-legged on the stage floor, listening to him hum old jazz tunes. Follow the music he had written. And now, here she was, following it. The door creaked as she pushed it open. A wave of stale air and dust greeted her. The inside was dark, but shafts of evening light slipped through cracks in the boarded windows, illuminating the ghosts of a forgotten era. Tables stood scattered, covered in cobwebs, and the faint outline of a stage lingered in the back. Olivia switched on her phone's flashlight and began exploring. Her shoes crunched on broken glass as she moved slowly across the floor. Everything felt frozen in time. Old posters peeling off the walls, a cracked mirror behind the bar, a piano in the corner, covered with a heavy tarp. She approached it. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled the tarp away, revealing the piano beneath. It was dusty but intact. She sat down on the creaky bench, and for a moment, the silence was so complete that she could hear her heartbeat. Taking a deep breath, she pressed one of the keys. The sound was dull, but the melody that came out was hauntingly familiar. The same tune her father used to play when he thought no one was listening. Her eyes welled up. As the last note echoed through the empty lounge, she noticed something strange. One of the keys didn't sound right. It was slightly loose. Curious, she pressed it again and heard a faint click beneath it. Her pulse quickened. She leaned closer, realizing the key wasn't just damaged. It was hiding something. With careful fingers, she lifted the key and discovered a small metal latch underneath. She flipped it open, and with a soft mechanical sound, a section of the piano's panel slid aside, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, wrapped in an old handkerchief, was a small wooden box. Her breath caught in her throat as she pulled it out. The box was engraved with her father's initials, R.C., and a single phrase beneath it: "For the truth." Her hands shook as she opened it. Inside were several yellowed documents, a flash drive, and a photograph, a picture of her father with a group of men, including one she instantly recognized. It was Deputy Commissioner Franklin Hayes, one of the most powerful law enforcement officials in Texas. Her father had always mentioned him as a man with ambition. But why would his picture be here, inside a hidden box meant to expose corruption? Olivia's mind raced as she flipped through the papers. There were handwritten notes in her father's careful script, names, dates, transactions, evidence that pointed to a secret network of officers, taking bribes from organized crime families in exchange for protection. Her father had discovered it all. And at the top of one document, circled in red ink, were the initials F.H. Her father had been investigating Franklin Hayes himself. The realization hit her like a wave. Her father hadn't died in an accident. He had been silenced. She stared down at the flash drive. Maybe it contained the full files, proof of everything. Her father had hidden it here, knowing one day someone, maybe her, would find it. Just then, a noise startled her. A soft thud came from the back door. She froze, her breath catching in her chest. Another sound followed. Footsteps. Someone else was in the building. Olivia quickly tucked the box under her arm and turned off her flashlight. Her heart pounded in her ears as she crouched behind the bar. Peering through the darkness, the door creaked open, and two silhouettes appeared, men in dark clothing, their flashlights sweeping across the room. One of them spoke in a low, rough voice. "She's here. The car's outside." The second man grunted. "Douglas said she was coming alone. Grab her before she leaves." Olivia's blood ran cold. Douglas? The chief had sent these men? The same man who had looked her in the eyes that morning and said her father would be proud. She clutched the box tighter, trying to control her breathing. The men moved closer, scanning the stage, the tables, the piano. Every second felt like an hour. She waited until their lights pointed in the opposite direction, then bolted. Her shoes hit the ground hard as she sprinted toward the front door. The sound of her movement echoed, and shouts followed behind her. "Hey, stop!" She didn't. She ran through the door, bursting into the open air and racing toward her car. The men were only seconds behind. One reached for her arm, but she swung her bag and struck him across the face, breaking free. She dove into the driver's seat, slammed the door, and sped off just as one of them shouted something into a radio. Her hands shook on the steering wheel, adrenaline surging through her veins. In her rearview mirror, she saw the two men getting into a black SUV. They were following her. She turned sharply, cutting through narrow back streets, trying to lose them. Her phone buzzed, an unknown number calling. Without thinking, she answered on speaker. A calm, low voice filled the car. "Dr. Carter, you shouldn't have gone there." Her stomach dropped. It was Chief Douglas. "What did you do?" She demanded. "You lied to me." He sighed on the other end. "You were never supposed to open that box. Your father's mistakes died with him for a reason. Walk away, Olivia, before you end up just like him." The line went dead. Olivia gritted her teeth, fury and heartbreak flooding through her. The man she thought she could trust had betrayed her, just like the department betrayed her father. But unlike him, she wasn't going to run or hide. She pressed her foot on the gas, her eyes fixed on the road ahead. She knew what she had to do now. She had evidence, proof, and she would expose them all. But as the SUV closed in behind her, headlights glaring, she realized she was in more danger than ever before. She couldn't go home. She couldn't go to the police. She was on her own. And somewhere deep down, beneath the fear, she felt something awaken, the same fire that had burned in her father's heart. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. The city lights of Austin blurred into streaks of color as Olivia sped through the downtown streets, her pulse pounding in her throat. The black SUV loomed behind her like a predator, relentless, headlights cutting through the night. She could hear the engine's roar, growing louder with each passing second. Her mind raced, every instinct screamed at her to keep moving. She took a sharp turn onto 6th Street, tires screeching, nearly clipping a lamppost. The nightlife crowd froze, startled by the sight of her car barreling past. Somewhere behind her, the SUV hit a garbage can, metal clattering on asphalt. It bought her a few precious seconds. Her father had once taught her a rule. When she was 16 and learning to drive, always know 3 exits wherever you go. Life has a way of cornering you. Right now, she needed every one of those exits. She turned onto a narrow alley between 2 old buildings. Headlights off, relying only on the faint glow of street lamps to guide her. She drove until the alley ended at a dead wall, then hit the brakes, grabbed the wooden box, and jumped out. Her feet hit the ground hard, echoing in the silence. She looked around. There was an old metal staircase leading up to the second floor of an abandoned print shop. Without thinking, she got the cold metal bit into her palms, but adrenaline kept her moving. When she reached the top, she crouched near a dusty window and peered down. The black SUV stopped at the mouth of the alley. Two men got out, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Her heart thundered in her chest. She pressed herself against the wall, praying they wouldn't look up. One of them kicked at a trash can, cursing under his breath. The other scanned the alley, then shook his head. After a long moment, they got back in the car and drove off. Olivia exhaled shakily, her body trembling. She sat there for a minute, clutching the wooden box, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Her father's evidence was her only protection now, and her only weapon. She needed to find someone she could trust. But in a world where even the chief of police was corrupt, who was left? Then a memory surfaced, a name her father had mentioned often in his journals. Elias Turner. A retired investigative journalist from Houston, known for exposing political scandals in the early 2000s. Her father had called him the last honest man I know. Olivia didn't hesitate. She slipped back to her car, double-checked that she wasn't being followed, and headed south out of Austin. The highway stretched before her like an endless ribbon of dull possibility and danger dot as she drove through the quiet Texas countryside. The memories came flooding back. Her father's laughter, the sound of his piano, the way he used to say, "Truth doesn't hide. Live, it just waits for the brave to find it." By the time she reached Houston, dawn had begun to break. The sky glowed pale orange, painting the horizon in fragile light. She pulled up in front of a small one-story house surrounded by overgrown bushes and an old pickup truck. The mailbox read E. Turner. Her stomach twisted. She didn't know if he'd even be alive, much less willing to help. But she had no choice. She walked up the steps and knocked. For a long moment, there was silence. Then the sound of shuffling feet. The door opened just enough for her to see a man in his late 60s with silver hair and tired eyes, holding a mug of coffee. Yes? He asked gruffly. "Mr. Turner," Olivia said softly. "My name is Olivia Carter. My father was." His expression changed instantly. "Raymond Carter?" She nodded. "I think he was murdered." He hesitated for only a second before opening the door fully. "Get in, quickly." Inside, his home smelled of old books, coffee, and printer ink. Stacks of newspapers and folders covered the living room. Turner motioned for her to sit while he locked the door and peeked through the blinds. "Tell me everything," he said. She told him about the letter, the box, the chase, the men, and Chief Douglas's phone call. Turner listened in silence, his jaw tightening with every detail. When she showed him the documents and the flash drive, his eyes widened. "I warned your father," he muttered. He was getting too close. Hayes and Douglas are part of a machine that's been eating this state alive for years. Your father found the gears. Olivia swallowed hard. "Can we prove it?" Turner nodded slowly. "If that flash drive has what I think it does, then yes. But we need to be smart. If you go public now, they'll bury you, literally. We'll need leverage, witnesses, and timing." He plugged the flash drive into his laptop. Lines of data filled the screen. Bank transfers, emails, recordings. Olivia leaned closer. It was all there. Turner looked up at her. "Your father built a bomb, Olivia. And now it's in your hands." Before she could respond, a loud bang shattered the quiet. The front window exploded inward, glass flying. Turner shouted for her to get down. A bullet lodged in the wall behind them. "Move!" he yelled, grabbing her arm. They scrambled into the kitchen as more shots rang out. Turner pulled a revolver from a drawer and motioned toward the back door. They burst outside, racing toward the tree line behind the house. The sound of footsteps followed. They ran through the thick brush until the sounds faded. Turner stopped, breathing heavily. "They must have tracked your car," he said. "We can't go back." Olivia's body shook with exhaustion and fear, but her resolve hardened. "Then we go forward," she said. "We finish what my father started." Turner looked at her, and for the first time, he smiled faintly. "You really are his daughter." They found refuge in an old barn a few miles away. Turner used his satellite phone, one not traceable, to contact an old friend who still worked at a national news outlet. He promised to meet them in the morning dot. As they waited, Olivia sat on the floor, the wooden box beside her. The moonlight streamed through cracks in the roof, casting long shadows. For the first time in days, she allowed herself to cry. Not out of weakness, but out of release that every tear carried the weight of loss, betrayal, and buried truth. Yet beneath it all, there was something else too. Hope. When she finally looked up, Turner was staring at her father's photo. "He always believed truth wins in the end," Turner said quietly. "Even when it doesn't look like it." Olivia nodded. "Then I'll make sure it does." Outside, in the distance, a lone coyote howled, a sound that carried both warning and promise. The night felt endless, but Olivia knew dawn was coming. And with it, just as the first light of dawn crept across the horizon, bathing the abandoned barn in a pale orange glow. Olivia hadn't slept at all. She sat near the doorway, her knees pulled to her chest, watching the world outside awaken. The air was cool, still, and heavy with the scent of damp earth. She could hear birds in the distance, faint but peaceful, a cruel contrast to the chaos swirling in her mind. Turner emerged from behind a stack of hay bales, his face lined with exhaustion, but his eyes sharp and alert. He handed her a cup of steaming coffee he had made on a portable burner. "Drink," he said. "You'll need the strength." Olivia took it with shaking hands, murmuring a quiet thank you. The warmth of the coffee spread through her chest, steadying her nerves. "Did you reach your contact?" she asked. Turner nodded. "Yeah. His name's Ryan Delgado, used to work for the Austin Ledger. He owes me a favor. He's meeting us at the old train depot outside Houston. No phones, no tracking. He's one of the few journalists left who isn't owned by the system." Olivia looked out the window, her expression distant. "And you trust him?" "With my life," Turner replied. "He's stubborn, but he still believes the truth can change things." After a quick meal of canned soup and crackers, they packed what little they had, a flash drive, the box, and Turner's laptop, and set off in Turner's old pickup truck. The road was quiet, framed by endless stretches of farmland and misty fields. The kind of scenery that would have calmed Olivia once, back when her life was simple. But now every shadow looked like danger. About halfway to the depot, Turner noticed a black sedan in the rearview mirror. It stayed several car lengths behind them, never passing, never falling away. Olivia's heart leapt into her throat. "It's them again," she whispered. Turner didn't answer, but his grip on the wheel tightened. "Stay calm," he muttered. "Let's make sure." He turned abruptly onto a dirt road that led into a wooded area. The sedan followed. "Definitely them," Turner said grimly. He hit the gas, the truck bumping violently over the uneven ground. Dust billowed behind them, obscuring their trail. "Hold on," he shouted as they veered off onto a narrow path leading downhill. Branches scraped against the windows. The sedan struggled to follow, tires spinning in the loose soil. Finally, Turner cut the engine and motioned for silence. They sat there, hearts pounding, listening. The sound of the sedan faded and stopped altogether. After a long moment, Turner whispered, "We'll circle around. They'll think we kept going." They hiked through the woods for nearly an hour until they reached an old service road. A farmer hauling hay gave them a ride the rest of the way to the depot. By the time they arrived, the sun was fully up, casting bright light across the rusted metal structures and broken train tracks. Ryan Delgado was already there, a tall man in his 30s, wearing a faded denim jacket and carrying a small messenger bag. He looked around nervously before spotting them. "Elias Turner," he said, shaking his hand. "You sure picked a hell of a place for a meeting." Turner smirked. "Old habits die hard." Ryan's eyes shifted to Olivia. "And you must be the reason the state's power brokers haven't slept in 3 days." Olivia managed a faint smile. "I guess so." They sat inside one of the derelict train cars, away from prying eyes. Turner plugged in the flash drive and began to show Ryan everything: the bribes, the secret land deals, the police involvement, even recorded phone calls implicating Senator Hayes and Chief Douglas in cover-ups of violence and fraud. As the evidence scrolled across the screen, Ryan's face went pale. This is enough to blow up half the state government," he whispered. "But if we release it, they'll come after you both. You understand that, right?" Olivia nodded. "They already have. My father was murdered for this. I won't let it die with him." Ryan exhaled deeply. "Then we'll do it my way, safely. I'll upload everything to 3 separate servers, leak it anonymously, and prepare a full report with verified sources. Once it's out, no one can bury it." Turner nodded approvingly. "You've still got it, kid." While Ryan worked on encrypting and transferring the files, Olivia stepped outside the train car to catch her breath. The open field stretched endlessly around her, but she still felt trapped. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "We're almost there, Dad. I promise." Suddenly, she heard the faint hum of an engine. Her heart dropped. A convoy of black SUVs appeared on the horizon, speeding toward the depot, dust rising behind them like a storm. She ran back inside. "They found us," she shouted. Doc Ryan looked up, eyes wide. "How?" Turner swore under his breath. "They must have traced my contact's email." "Damn it!" Ryan grabbed his bag. "I can finish the upload if I stay connected, but it'll take a few minutes." "Then do it," Olivia said fiercely. "We'll hold them off." Turner handed her his revolver. "You ever shot before?" She shook her head. He smiled grimly. "Then point and pray." The first SUV skidded to a stop outside the depot. Men in tactical gear spilled out, armed and shouting. Turner fired 2 warning shots, sending them ducking for cover. Bullets tore through the air, slamming into the side of the train car. Olivia crouched behind a steel beam, adrenaline flooding her veins. Inside, Ryan yelled over the gunfire. "Almost done. 30 seconds." Turner fired again, his voice calm despite the chaos. "They're not leaving until that file's out." A bullet grazed Olivia's shoulder, tearing her sleeve. She winced but stayed focused. She thought of her father, of his laughter, his faith in her, his belief that truth was worth dying for. Suddenly, Ryan shouted, "Done. It's live. The files are in the cloud, encrypted and mirrored." Turner grinned. "Then we've already won." At that moment, a flashbang exploded near the train car, knocking them all off balance. The doors burst open as armed officers stormed inside. Turner was forced to the ground. Olivia tried to reach for the revolver, but one of the men kicked it away. Ryan was grabbed and thrown against the wall. "You have no idea what you've done." One of the officers barked. Olivia, blood on her face, glared at him. "No," she said quietly. "You have no idea what's coming." And then, in the distance, the sound of dozens of car horns echoed, a growing crowd forming at the edge of the depot. The story was already spreading. Ryan's contacts in the media had picked up the leak, and reporters were rushing to the scene. Within minutes, helicopters appeared overhead. News cameras zoomed in. The officers froze, realizing the world was watching. Turner looked at Olivia, a proud smile breaking through the chaos. "You did it," he whispered. For the first time in days, she smiled back. "No," she said. "We did." The flashing lights of police cruisers and news vans turned the abandoned depot into a surreal battlefield of chaos and revelation. Reporters crowded behind barricades, microphones in hand, shouting questions that echoed into the air. Cameras zoomed in on the line of armed officers, still holding Turner, Olivia, and Ryan at gunpoint. But now the officers hesitated, their power no longer hidden behind darkness. The moment the story went public, everything changed. Ryan's files had spread across every major news outlet in the country. Within minutes, headlines blazed across screens. Corruption exposed, police and politicians linked to illegal land deals. Brave woman risks life to leak evidence of state cover-up. Daughter of murdered official reveals. Truth about justice system. Olivia could see it happening in real time. Reporters reading from their phones. Anchors gasping live on television. Social media flooding with outrage. Hashtags trended nationwide. Hashtag Justice for Henderson. Hashtag Truth in Texas. Hashtag Olivia the Brave. Turner looked at the swarm of cameras and chuckled under his breath. "Guess they can't shoot us now," he muttered. The lead officer hesitated, his earpiece crackling. Someone was yelling in his ear. Orders from higher up, no doubt. He looked at Olivia, then at the journalists recording his every move. Finally, with a clenched jaw, he gave a sharp order. "Stand down." The guns lowered. Turner exhaled, tension draining from his body. 2 federal agents, clearly not part of the local police, arrived moments later, pushing through the crowd with badges held high. They approached Olivia, flashing credentials from the Department of Justice. "Miss Henderson," one of them said firmly, "we've been looking for you. You're safe now." Olivia stared at them in disbelief. For the first time, she realized the tide had truly turned. Turner stood beside her as the agents took statements, securing Ryan's laptop and promising federal protection for all 3 of them. As they walked her toward a waiting car, a group of reporters shouted questions. "Olivia, did you know the risks when you exposed them? What message do you have for the people watching this? Do you believe justice will finally be served?" She paused, her hair still disheveled, dirt on her face, blood on her sleeve. Her voice, though quiet, carried with unexpected strength. "I didn't do this for revenge," she said. "I did it for my father, and for everyone who's ever been told to stay silent. The truth might take time. It might cost everything, ... But it's the only thing worth fighting for." Her words went viral within minutes. People across the country shared the video, calling her a hero. Over the following weeks, investigations began on a massive scale. Senator Hayes resigned under public pressure. Chief Douglas was arrested for obstruction of justice and conspiracy. Several high-ranking officers were stripped of their badges, and dozens of politicians faced indictments. Olivia attended every hearing, sitting in the front row, never missing a day. Turner, always nearby, became both her protector and her friend. Ryan continued publishing articles that documented every victory, every person who had thought they were untouchable, now facing the consequences of their corruption. Months later, in the small cemetery outside Austin, Olivia returned to her father's grave. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and crimson. She placed a single white lily on the headstone, her hand trembling slightly. "Dad," she whispered, "I kept my promise." She looked up and smiled through tears. "They'll never silence your name again." Turner stood a few feet away, his hat in his hands. He didn't speak. He didn't need to dot as the last rays of sunlight faded. A gentle wind swept through the trees, rustling the leaves like a whisper of peace. For the first time in years, Olivia felt free, not just from danger, but from the weight of fear that had followed her since that night. When she walked back to the car, her phone buzzed. It was a notification from a national news outlet. Olivia Henderson to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom for courage and integrity. She stopped in her tracks, staring at the screen, unable to move. Turner noticed her expression and smiled knowingly. "Your father would have been proud," he said. Olivia laughed softly, her eyes glistening. "I think he already is." They drove away from the cemetery in silence, the radio softly playing a gospel hymn, the same one her father used to hum while cooking breakfast on Sunday mornings. The world had changed, not just for Olivia, but for countless others inspired by her bravery. Back at home, her inbox overflowed with letters, people from every corner of the country writing to thank her, to share their own stories, to say that her courage had given them hope. And that night, as she stood by her window looking out at the city skyline, she whispered to herself, "The truth really does set you free." Her reflection in the glass smiled back, stronger, wiser, unbroken. The video fades to black with powerful text appearing on screen. No matter how dark the system seems, truth and courage still have the power to bring light. Like, share, and comment if you believe justice always finds its way. Subscribe for more real stories of courage, redemption, and hope.